the HTC Vive or an Oculus Rift is really the first attempt at this consumer VR. Even if it was cheap and great, you still need to see it, and then you need to get in the mode of, I need that in my life. Mm-hmm. And the only people right now who are getting it are gamers. This is a dramatically big product for Apple coming. And Tim Cook has already been signaling the hell out of it.
Hey everybody, welcome to Inside VR and AR. This is our weekly, mostly weekly podcast about virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality. Here with Robert Scoble, our host, and I'm Austin, co-host, and I'm Austin, co-host. I'm from Inside.com, and then Robert, you probably know, he's entrepreneur in residence at Upload VR and has been traveling the world talking about VR and AR and trying out all the coolest products and talking to the world about where they're going.
And getting inside looks at R&D labs. I was at Mercedes-Benz this week getting a look at what they're doing with the latest self-driving technologies and the latest business schemes that they're thinking about dealing with Uber about. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming.
Yeah. And also worth mentioning that this podcast is sort of partners with the Inside VR and AR newsletter, which now Robert is working with us on. So that's inside.com/VRAR to subscribe to that. And it comes a couple times a week, and it's a roundup of all the most exciting news. A lot of the same stuff that we talk about here on the podcast, but in your inbox. So I think probably the spectacles are big news for sure, but I would say probably
Keep in mind it's an audio podcast, so they couldn't see me put on the Snap spectacles, but I'm shooting some video right now.
Yeah, Robert is wearing spectacles. Actually, mine are on my desk in the other room. I should have brought them. Yeah. But yeah, so I think the biggest news this week is Magic Leap. They obviously were sort of the darling child for a while, but very cryptic about what they were doing. They've raised a ton of money at a $4.5 billion valuation before launching a product. It's a augmented reality product similar to Microsoft HoloLens. And so I can actually pull up a video showing their demo for anyone who is watching on video.
Yeah.
And they have shown some demos and done some press, but no one has actually really used the product, or no one that can talk about it.
That's not true. I know at least 50 people who have actually seen their early prototype. Most of these were investors or potential employees, stuff like that. They won't show it to me for two reasons. One, they're scared of me. They think I'll destroy their PR, which they've done perfectly well on their own. They didn't need me to destroy their PR.
Yeah.
In fact, the guy who runs PR now is working, has left the company in the last week.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway, so
well, yeah. So basically they showed these amazing demos, and it came out that they were kind of done. Not exactly. These videos are not actual demos of the real product being used, and so I think
that's not completely true. There was one video, not the one we're showing.
Okay, not that one.
Which was a video of a game that they claimed they were playing at the office, and that video was completely faked.
Right.
The other ones were, and it didn't even say we were looking through the Magic Leap optic on that video, so they didn't technically lie, but they got really, they're skating through the trees.
Yeah. Okay. Now we see people leaving the head of PR. So what do you think? I mean, is this sort of the unraveling of this company, or?
I think there's two things happening at the same time that's giving them trouble. One, they showed the investors a pair of optics that were mind-blowing, and that's why they got the money, and that's why they got the hype. Because Ted Chilwitz, for instance, at 20th Century Fox says it was the best technology he's ever seen in his life. So it's a mind-blowing technology. And those optic chips that they were trying to build are really hard to build. And I think somebody finally realized, hey, we're not going to be able to build these in that anytime soon, right? And that leads to the second point. I believe they know that Apple is coming into this market. And so is Microsoft, so is Facebook. Facebook's doing a deal with ODG, I hear. Apple is working with Carl Zeiss on glasses. So they know that other players in the market that have advantages that they don't, i.e. brand, stores, distribution, money, right? All the armies of evangelists. Microsoft has 1,300 evangelists that can go around the world and show off new products and give speeches at local user group meetings and all that fun stuff, right? That's why HoloLens is something we understand what it is, right? If HoloLens came from a little company like Magic Leap, probably nobody would pay attention to it because it's not serious yet. So how does Magic Leap go to market against an Apple? Do they have really a product that is so mind-blowing that you're going to go, oh, I'm not going to spend $1,000 on a new iPhone. I'm going to go and buy this Magic Leap thing, right? And that's really a tough spot for that company to be in.
Especially, I mean, they're going to be bootstrapping a developer community from, I mean, they can't even get started with that today because nobody can build on the platform. And so...
well, what I understand has happened is they have gone to more traditional optics, i.e. a waveguide optic that puts the virtual image on top of the world, right? And they're going with more commonly available optics, i.e. optics from one of the companies in Israel that's making a lot of these things. The thing is that means that some of their differentiation has just all of a sudden gone away, that they're going to be faced with the same problems that HoloLens has: narrow viewing angle, not very refocusable images, so your images don't feel as natural as they would have with this mind-blowing weird optic that they were trying to develop. And also, if it's the same optic that the Apple one has in it, why do I buy theirs? Why not buy the Apple one, which has 1 million apps on it too, right?
And as a developer, why do you build for Magic Leap if you can build for Apple? Because you know they're going to get the distribution.
I assume as a developer you're going to build for Unity, and the Unity is the development environment that all these things are being built on, and Unity will take you most of the way, and then you have to debug and make sure that it works with the API calls that's on the iPhone. But that's mostly Unity's job to obfuscate all that work for the developers. Unity is in a really great spot right now. I mean, everybody in VR is using Unity. Everybody in AR is using Unity. And so I think...
And they're diversified across the platforms, so they don't need one particular...
Yeah, you use Unity on Samsung Gear VR or HoloLens or Oculus Rift or HTC Vive or Sony PlayStation VR. Right?
So do you think today that Magic Leap has a product that is better than the Microsoft HoloLens?
From what I was told was yes, but most of those people had seen the previous optics. So I don't know anymore the state of Magic Leap's optics and their software and their sensor. Keep in mind, these things are, Apple has 600 people working, 600 engineers in Tel Aviv working on just the 3D sensor for the next iPhone, the PrimeSense sensor. And I have a feeling that most of that work isn't actually being done on the sensor, it's being done on the artificial intelligence, because a company, and we should have these guys on as guests, a company visited me last Friday called Yowza, and they showed me how their system will take a 3D image of your room, will segment the objects in the room. So these glasses would have a different color than the table underneath, right? And then it starts looking those glasses up using artificial intelligence because it knows those are Snap spectacles, and maybe it can find a CAD drawing to bring down an overlay on top of the real product, which would make this this world be very virtual reality, and make it so that I could capture a room like this. I mean, let's say I needed a studio, a TV studio in my new Sims product, right? I use a glasses like this to grab this room. Now I have a 3D image of this room. Now I can take it into Unity and build a game out of it, or build a journalism thing out of it, or have some fun, right?
And you could see manufacturers wanting to just submitting the CAD drawings to some database because they want if it's their camera on the table or their table that they built, they want it to come up as their thing. So yeah,
now
that's
you're
interesting.
To think about what would you do if you had glasses on and you had everything in your room virtualized. That is the big idea behind mixed reality. And in fact, we're watching a TV in front of us, a real TV, and it's what, a 60-inch, 45-inch TV, 50-inch
Something
TV,
like that,
something
yeah.
like that. And if I had mixed reality glasses on, I could grab the image off that TV and then just reposition it because it's all virtualized. At home, I have 6 monitors already on top of my desk at home so that I can work on 6 virtualized monitors with HoloLens. And it's quite mind-blowing when you start organizing your life with multiple virtualized screens, and virtualized everything is coming, right? In VR, we have a game called Soundstage, I think it is called, and it has 40 virtualized musical instruments, and you can play and compose music in VR. So think about being in the economy section of a jet, and you could be a musician composing music back there, right? You don't need to carry all of your equipment. You don't need to carry your turntables. You don't need to carry monitors to see things. And you can even set up virtually the lighting show that's going to be displayed if you were going to play at Coachella, for instance. So it's pretty mind-blowing what you can do and what's coming.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, I guess it's good time to move on. Magic Leap, obviously, we will be talking about probably in every episode for a while. So that'll be always a topic. But so the next thing I have here, a study of U.S. households by Parks Associates found that 63% of the people surveyed had not heard of virtual reality. So this is kind of bringing us back down to earth. Obviously, we think this stuff is coming, but if 63% of people haven't even heard of virtual reality, let alone what we would call mixed reality or augmented reality, what do you think that says about the sort of adoption curve that we're going to see?
This summer, the Apple II shipped, right? The HTC Vive or an Oculus Rift is really the first attempt at this consumer VR. And it takes time for people, one, to see it, two, to purchase it. And the first people to purchase it are probably gamers, because why would anybody spend $1,500 on a PC? Because for HTC Vive or Oculus Rift, which is the ones I like the best, you have to buy a PC with an NVIDIA card. The NVIDIA card alone for the top end is $600 retail. And you can save a little bit of money, maybe go to a $200 card, but you still need to buy a fairly beefy GPU card to do VR.
Yeah, the one we got is a $2,000 PC just to run the HTC Vive. So
yeah, and then the HTC Vive has the lighthouses. These are little boxes that you have to put on your walls, aiming at where you're going to be playing, so it builds a virtual play space. And that's all going away in the next 8 months, 10 months, right? And Oculus has 2 cameras at home that build a similar play space. It's not quite as nice as the HTC, but it's good enough. And the new touch controllers, by the way, on Oculus are stunning. They are really nice. And they're lighter than the HTC Vive controllers. And they can tell where your fingers are on the controller, so you can do things like grabbing things much nicer than with the HTC Vive controllers.
So do you think if it were, say, $500 all in to have a high-end VR experience in your living room, do you think that this stuff would just be flying off the shelves?
Not so sure, because it takes time for people to see it. Even if it was cheap and great, you still need to see it, and then you need to get in the mode of, I need that in my life. And the only people right now who are getting it are gamers, because a lot of the other stuff just hasn't come along. Even me, after playing for a couple months now at home, you get bored a little bit. There's not the really big blockbuster kind of Bungie Halo kind of games, right? They cost $100 million to build. Hollywood has not lit this up yet because there aren't the number of headsets out there. So it's a chicken and egg kind of thing. What it is doing, though, is giving developers right now a way to build little audiences and build things iteratively, so that when the big bang does happen and Apple brings out a phone that enthralls people, that's going to sell 20 million in the first weekend, right? This is a dramatically big product for Apple coming. So, and Tim Cook has already been signaling the hell out of it, that AR is coming, and it's coming soon because he's talking about it. And you know how Apple works. They don't talk about things if they're not within the next 18 months, right?
Right. So anyone who's been listening to this podcast knows that Robert has been talking about this clear glass iPhone. Do you think we are going to start seeing some of those analysts that you always see? I mean, usually we know 6 months out kind of what the next iPhone is going to look like.
The real problem, and let's separate out the clear glass thing. Let's say it's just an AR phone that uses a 3D sensor and then mixes what it's getting off that sensor into the camera and puts it on the screen. So you would see, looking through the phone, I would see you, and then I would see a Pokemon.
Like Snapchat, or like Pokemon, but with 3D sensors.
And that alone would be pretty cool. Where am I going with this? That alone will get a lot of people into augmented reality, but this product has been developed for 7 years by Apple. They first did the first patent in 2011 on it that I can find, and they might have patents even before that. And Tim Cook has spent more than $10 billion on this next iPhone. So removing the clear from it, it's a big, huge release. It's the 10th anniversary iPhone. It's the first iPhone that will be presented in the new campus that they're opening. They spent $1 billion on just that, right?
Yep.
So Tim Cook has been preparing for that day in next September for a while, and I totally expect him to blow us away with this kind of stuff that's coming. I don't know where we were going to go. There's some comments here, by the way, that we should get.
Yeah.
Samara Lynn says, when I try to explain VR to my dad, he's like, why? Yeah, there's a little bit of a generation thing there that I've been noticing. I've been doing a lot of parties at my house and watching how people react to VR. The kids get it instantly.
Do you think?
And in fact, the kids want to play it and know and already have an idea of what they want to play in VR even before they've even touched VR because they've been watching YouTube videos that has sort of prepared them. Older people, I'm not a gamer. Why do I want to put something weird on my face just to game or watch a movie? And it takes them a little bit. Once you put them in there, then they get it. It's like, holy shit, this is not TV. This is very, very different. And one example, I've seen people unable to walk across a floor. They know they're in a real conference room, where there's a concrete floor. They know that floor hasn't changed. But in VR, they're seeing a plank that's across a canyon, and they're unable to walk across that plank, which is a virtual plank. And the second half of their mind is going, it's just a video game. But it's such a strong pull on you, this immersive media, that you cannot walk across a plank. And I've seen people, I love playing this game called Fragments with people on the HoloLens. And it maps out your room and puts stuff all over it. You played it last time I had my HoloLens here. And there's rats rocking around the floor, and there's murder. A murder happens in front of you, and you have to solve the murder. It's really nuts. It's really nuts. When you put something like that on people, then they start getting it. They're like, oh, this is like the future of television, the future of video gaming, and the future of a lot of things.
And this is also a pretty standard kind of way that new technology products get adopted, right? Like people, the personal computer was kind of scoffed at, like
totally. Yeah. When I know Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple, and he said, "Man, I tried to get HP to build my personal computer, and they told me twice that nobody would buy a personal computer, and said you got to go and do your own thing. You can't do it here because we don't believe in it." And so we're being hit with the same kind of disbelief because people see a dorky big thing on your face and go, oh, that's not going to work. What they're not counting on is the innovation that's happening underneath. and the kinds of experiences you can have in VR. And very few people understand that, because if you've only gotten 15 minutes at a Microsoft store playing a HTC Vive, you haven't yet thrown a football with your friends in this thing. You haven't gone skeet shooting. You haven't done ski jumping. You haven't shot archery. You haven't gone into a nightclub. You haven't tried doing education yet because you haven't had time. You've gotten a little blue demo. Okay, great. I got that demo 3 years ago, 2 years ago, right? And there's a lot more on VR already today than most people understand. And so when Apple shows it off to you, you're going to have your mind blown, because most people in the world don't know that you can play against other people in VR or do a book reading like we did this week at Altspace VR. Yep.
Cool. So the next thing that I have here, which is relevant to the iPhone, is I think you maybe have used this product, Occipital Bridge. So it's a headset that you can pop an iPhone into, and it's the first kind of VR or mixed reality headset for the iPhone.
Yeah.
And if I understand it correctly, it's 3D sensors that kind of draw the room, and then you're looking. It's basically what you're describing as what Apple might be shipping, all packed into one iPhone next year. But this year it's a third-party product.
Except it's doing augmented reality, not really mixed reality, because you're not seeing through the phone into the real world.
Right. So it's rendering what the camera sees and then adding to it.
Yeah,
like
and
Pokemon.
It looks like mixed reality, but it has a little tiny lag when you move the phone around. Because what it has to do is grab the image off the camera, throw that into the GPU, throw that in with the point cloud that it built, or the polygon or voxel map. Voxels are volumetric pixels.
I'm just pulling up a video.
So it's building a map of millions of volumetric pixels around you, or a grid of polygons. Yeah, you see it right there. And it overlays stuff on that grid. And that process takes a little bit of time to do, to mix it all together. And so you see just a little tiny lag. And that's where the effect falls down a little bit. And it also is a phone. And this is why I believe in 3 years we're not using phones. We're using glasses.
Yeah.
And we're starting to move into a Microsoft HoloLens style thing. HoloLens today is too big and dorky and too expensive for consumers. In 3 years, that won't be the case.
Right.
So Samsung today just they didn't really announce, but it was announced for them, that Samsung is working on a mixed reality glasses. And we know Apple is working with Carl Zeiss on glasses. We don't know when they're going to be released. And we know,
here you are on this video.
Yeah. And we know that HoloLens is coming out with version 2 probably in 2017. So next year seems like it's going to be a real important year for this new augmented reality stuff that's coming along.
So would you buy this headset for $399?
If I was a developer and really wanted to think through some of these things, like if I was working at a car company, I'd talk to Mercedes, for instance, about what would augmented reality let you do as a car company? How would it change the buying behavior of a car, or how you buy a car? I mean, how would it change what you could do on top of the car? Like have a Batmobile, a virtual thing on top of your Audi or on top of your Mercedes.
Right, or change the scenery around you.
What would it do inside the car? So you're wearing these glasses inside the car. What do you see? What do you experience? And this Occipital Bridge could be very good for a developer team who is doing some of this early thinking, to have some prototype tools to visualize what this stuff might look like when we do get really small, cheap glasses in 3, 4, 5 years, right?
So where does a company like that go then? If they're, I mean, that's not a big market. The people that are just building the stuff, looking at where,
It's you got to innovate and stay ahead of the big boys. This is how,
or get bought by them.
Remember all the companies that used to build developer tools for Visual Basic, which built for Windows, And there was a whole ecosystem of companies like this, and they had to innovate and stay ahead of Microsoft, right? And every year when Microsoft came out with Visual Studio, new version, it would take away some of that business. It would say, oh, that's a cool component. We're going to either license it from you or we're going to just copy it and put it in a Visual Studio, and that company would go away, right?
Yep. I guess Apple has done this to their developer ecosystem too. They pick off the best
Facebook
ideas.
does it, right?
Yeah.
When Snapchat does something cool, Facebook copies it, and vice versa, right?
Okay, cool. So another piece of news, I don't know if this is interesting to you or not, but WordPress blogs now have the ability to host virtual reality content.
Yeah, 360 video content, which some people don't think is VR, but I bundle it into immersive technologies, right?
Do you think that's says anything or is interesting?
Yeah, because Matt Mullenweg is smart, and he understands when content producers want to do something, that he better give them an ability to distribute that media to the world. I mean, go to Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook page. Just, I think this morning or late last night, he put up a 360 video of his kid walking for the first time, right? And that's very compelling video, more compelling than if you just pulled out a phone and live broadcast that, right? Like we are here. Because you can see the whole room in 360 and really get a context of what was going on there. And we've seen plenty of 360 videos. I did one at Coachella. We have lots of 360 cameras that we're playing with in this world.
If you're listening on our audio podcast, by the way, we also post to YouTube a video version and Facebook Live on Robert's Facebook page. So if you're listening and hearing us talk about the videos on the screen, then check us out on YouTube and you can see Mark Zuckerberg doing a 360 video and all these other things that we're pulling up. Yeah,
and I'm just looking at the comments coming in on Facebook's chat room underneath the video. And Tim Callahan says, any thoughts on Oculus Rooms, only initially, possibly exclusively launching on Samsung Gear VR? And Samsung Gear VR is an Oculus partner. I call it Oculus cheap. Gear VR has some major limitations right now. It's not 6 degrees of freedom, so you can't play football or basketball with your friends the way you can on an HTC Vive or the expensive Oculus Rift. And I think this is an interesting thing that's coming along. Oculus or Facebook has built virtual social VR experiences. There's one called Toy Box on the Oculus Rift that I like playing with my kids, and you can play with somebody else on. It's almost like this studio where I can play with somebody virtually on the other side of a table, and on the table in between us, there's fireworks, there's guns, there's balls, there's toys. There's a little fun little tank that we can pick up a controller and then remote control this virtual tank around. It's a lot of fun. And this is a new kind of social VR where we can play with somebody else. And I think Facebook is going to really come on hard in this space. And they have competitors. Altspace VR that I did my virtual book reading in is another competitor. They got $16 million from Google Ventures, among others. There's High Fidelity, which was started by Philip Rosedale. Philip Rosedale started this thing called Linden Labs, which built Second Life. And of course, Linden Labs has a new virtual world, a social VR world called Sansar coming out. And a lot of my friends at Upload really like that. But we're seeing new worlds where we can work, play, watch movies together with other people, right? And shoot things and play basketball and play mini golf. All sorts of fun stuff is coming in these virtual worlds. Facebook is I think, the one to watch in that space because Zuckerberg understands social better than most people in the world and has built a whole really rich company on it, right?
So in most of these social experiences, it's kind of, you're going to be able to design an avatar that sort of is your character and and that's what everyone else sees.
Yep.
Do you think there will be open standards in some way where I can have the same avatar on Facebook's platform as I can on all these other platforms.
I would expect them to do stuff like that, yeah, because all you're talking about is pixels and voxels, right? If I grab you with a 3D sensor, now I have you as a grid of voxels or volumetric pixels, and I can probably import that into any number of environments if they support importing a 3D object. And of course, all these things do, because that's how they work, right? That Unity is the development environment, and you can import stuff like that all the time. When people talk about standards, though, what they're usually talking about is there a way to build an app once and have it run on everything. We're close to that with the Unity, but each headset has different attributes and has different kinds of controls and different kinds of APIs. So you're going to have to dumb down. Most of the developers I know build for like an HTC Vive, which has the best control, or had the best controllers for all summer long, and had the best play space, or this virtual space that you can move around in. And then they dumb it down for the Gear VR or the Google Cardboard, because Google Cardboard or Gear VR is only 3 degrees of freedom. You can only turn your head. You can't move your body around. You can't walk. You can't move closer or further away from something. And so you have to dumb down your VR game to work properly in Samsung Gear VR and give a good experience there, as well as a good experience for somebody who owns an Oculus Rift or a HTC Vive.
I mean, this is similar to mobile. I happen to have worked at a place that was one of these, write JavaScript and you ship native code for all of the different platforms, and it's kind of ends up being the lowest common denominator. If you're writing, if you're not building native for the iPhone, then you miss out on a lot of the features that make the iPhone special, and that applies to any number of other.
We haven't yet seen products that use eye sensors, and those are coming. Google just bought a company called iFluence, which is in our book. Jim Margraf, who runs that, showed me a pair of AR glasses. And you look at something like this LaCroix can. I'm drinking LaCroix today. And you look at the can, and a menu pops off the can and lets you see all sorts of stuff about it, right? And that's coming. And many companies are working on just that, right? BlipR is a good example of that, where BlipR, you aim your phone at a can of Coke, and it'll augment. Something will pop off the can.
Like information, it'll say, this is made by Coca-Cola, and
a whole bunch of experiences can pop off, like monsters can pop off of it, all sorts of fun stuff, right? And so you're going to be able to look at it at a brand soon, i.e. in the next 3 years, with one of these glasses that have eye sensors, and you're going to be able to interact with the can. Now, obviously, if you have older VR that doesn't have eye sensors, you're going to not have that feature, right? And the OS is going to be stunted. So we're going to see a lot of innovation really quickly from a lot of different places. And that does not lead to good standards, because Apple ain't going to show Facebook what they're doing and say, hey, let's get together and build a nice kumbaya standard so that you can take your Apple game and put it right onto a Facebook thing. No. Everybody wants their 30%. Everybody wants their own store. Everybody wants wants to provide an environment that has a better frame rate than the other guys, and has better user interface elements that aren't so clunky. I mean, when we tear down the HoloLens, for instance, the user interface elements feel a little windowy like, which it shouldn't. This is a 3D environment. Get rid of the idea that you're going to have, windows in this environment. It's going to be a 3D environment. Why would you put a flat menu in front of me in such a glasses, right? So that hasn't yet been built. That's software that has to be built.
Yep. Okay, cool. So the next thing actually relates back to avatars. So I don't know if you've heard of this company, Loom.ai. But they're developing realistic avatars that can capture a user's personality, and using visual effects expertise from Lucasfilm and DreamWorks, the company creates CGI models with an AI system that learns about the personalities of the people it replicates. They hope that by feeding the system more facial data, including videos and photos, the avatars will become more recognizable and capture nuances of personalized emotion.
Yeah, there's a bunch of companies. Apple bought one, and I forget the one that Apple bought. There's a whole bunch of companies that are looking at using these 3D sensors to grab your face and be able to put that on a virtualized avatar.
These ones look really realistic.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
They're getting pretty good. Now, when you talk to VR people, you invariably will hear the words uncanny valley show up.
Yep.
And when you start doing this kind of work where you're going to put a 3D mesh on a human and try to present them as real, your mind starts noticing any of the flaws that show up. And as we get closer and closer to looking like a human, this will be a harder and harder thing to beat. Your mind, it's sort of like talking to somebody who has something black in their teeth, right? It bothers you.
Right.
And until you can break into the conversation and sort of pull them aside and say, hey, you have a black thing in your teeth, looking at them will bother you. And the same thing is true of this new technology that lets us put humanoid features on top of things, right? And at Altspace VR, they've decided not even to go there yet, to keep the virtual Scoble looking cartoony-like, which means that our mind doesn't go into trying to figure out, is that a real thing or not? And the designers of these new environments have a lot of work to do to make sure it feels good. That's where we're going.
So you think we're gonna have cartoonish avatars for a while before we get these
until you get a fully realistic world, and we're a little bit a ways from that. You're starting to see some really good R&D projects coming along. I sort of like the cartoony world because it avoids this whole problem for now. But we know that the numbers of polygons is going up. The sensors are getting way better. So we'll see how good it is at the end of 2017. But for right now, most of the experiences you're going to have in VR are going to have cartoony humanoid features. They're not going to look photorealistic because of this problem, this uncanny valley problem.
Cool. Well, that's most of the news that I had. I have a couple other things, but they don't look like anything that we really need to talk about. I think
Albert Sanchez said, what's the most prominent company in the haptic space that I'm keeping an eye on? That's actually why we go to Consumer Electronics Show. That's a perfect question to go. Because they're never going to, one that's in our office is Subpack. And Subpack makes a bodysuit that you wear. And it's really good if you're getting shot in paintball. You feel the shots. It gives you a little thump on your chest, right? And not enough to hurt you the way a paintball would hurt you if I shot you right in the face with it. But enough to make you feel an extra kind of immersion in such a game. And there's a whole bunch of companies that are doing gloves and doing different ways to try to do haptics. I haven't seen one that just totally blew my mind yet. Subpack is getting there because it's about a $300 vest that you wear, and it also improves your music. So there's a side benefit of wearing one of these vests. You get better music. If you're in a bomb blast, you really feel it. If you I believe that the Void, when I went to New York City and played the Ghostbusters VR experience, they put a suit on me like this, and when ghosts came through me, you felt them, and it's really freaky. It's like, whoa, that gives me the shivers, because this ghost visually goes through you, and then you feel it go through you, and it's like, whoa, that's weird, and so. Anyways, that's why I go to CES, because these companies can't afford the marketing budgets that a Facebook or a Sony or a Samsung can afford. So, but this is why we walk the back halls of these shows to try to find cool stuff like that, right? So I expect I'll have a much better answer to that in about 2 weeks.
Yeah, what are you most excited about seeing at CES? Or
This year, I don't see a bunch of new products coming out at CES. There are going to be a few. I'm going to see ODG, which is a mixed reality glasses manufacturer. They just got $60 million in funding, and from 20th Century Fox was one of the investors, by the way. And they're going to show off some new products. I'm going to see that, I think, next week. But that's not an Oculus Rift or a big name. Mm-hmm. It could be, though, because I hear rumors that they're working with Facebook. So it might be the beginnings of a Facebook augmented reality glasses that would compete with whatever Apple's doing and whatever Magic Leap's doing and whatever Microsoft is doing with HoloLens and whatever Samsung thinks it's doing, and et cetera, et cetera.
Cool. Well, that's probably a good place to wrap up.
It's a good Friday afternoon.
Yeah. So thank you all for listening. Just another reminder, this is Inside VR and AR. So we have an accompanying newsletter that's at inside.com/VR AR, and you can subscribe to that. And we are in iTunes and SoundCloud and YouTube and your favorite podcasting app, whatever that may be. You probably can find us there. It's Inside VR and AR, or if you search Robert Scoble's name. And I'm Austin Smith.
Or Austin Smith.
Or Austin Smith's name, too.
Although Smith
I don't
is
know
a
if my
little
name
harder
is,
to
yeah,
brand.
Yeah.
I have the benefit of a very unusual name. And there's not many Scobles in the world. There's a few, but
right.
Not many. And it's easier to brand a name like that than Smith.
Exactly. So thank you for joining us, and we will be back soon with another episode.